I want to tell you just a couple things about the Costa Rican family. One is, they'll be your greatest resource. They can be your greatest resource. You can learn the most from them from anybody else because you'll spend more time or have the opportunity to spend time with them. But you've got to use the resource. And the most important thing about using the resource is that it's up to you to adapt to them and not them to adapt to you. So again, this is one of the keys that we're going to talk about later, as far as if you go in thinking that they have to change their diet, their timing, the way they integrate as a family, they won't. They won't. When I was living with a host family here, something that they did, the whole family, they had like 3 or 4 kids, and they had, one of the kids had her husband and 2 children that lived in the household, and they would all go and sit on mom's bed and watch TV. In mom's bedroom, she had like a big, she had a queen-size bed. You'd pack them all on there. And everybody would just sit on the bed and watch TV in mom's room. And that for me was abnormal. In my household, we just didn't hang out in my parents' bedroom. Culturally, I just wasn't the place, like we didn't all like camp out on mom and dad's bed. Especially when I was a teenager. You know, this is, teenage kids, and even the oldest son was 21. He's university, finishing up his university. This was a different way of relating as a family than for my family. And so I felt uncomfortable. And so I'd sit out in the living room and like watch TV by myself. And they'd be all in there on the bed, camped out. And they'd always say, oh, if you want to come in, come on in. And I'd be like, oh, that's weird. I just don't feel comfortable. So finally, after about a month, I'm like, man, they're not coming out here. They're going to stay right in there where they've always been. If I want to hang out with them, I got to go to them. So Eric piled onto the bed, made a little space there, and it was great because that's where they would sit and they would talk, and I would work on my Spanish, and they'd catch up about what was going on. They'd make comments about the TV, whatever it happened to be. But you have to adapt to them and not them adapting to you. You've got to make that switch, or else you really won't get the most out of the experience. You may find that in the homes here, there's more interdependence. What does that mean? People have kind of more set gender roles, perhaps, than what you're used to. Mom does certain things. It's very common that mom is the queen of the kitchen. Like nobody else goes in the kitchen. Mom runs the show. So you don't want to be going in and opening up the refrigerator without mom's permission. In fact, you probably don't want to be doing that at all. So those types of things, you'll see it. Maybe dad has certain other things, but mom, she has her roles. It's a different culture. They have a different sense of what is feminism, what isn't, what is the role of a woman, what's the role of a man within the household. So you adapt to them. Be open to what it is that they're doing. Yes, go ahead.
Do they snack, or do they just have like 3 meals a day?
Now it depends on the family. What have I found? One of the things that I found is that the traditional Costa Rican meal was always lunch. The family would get together for lunch. In fact, even 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was here as a student, the father in my house would come home every day and eat lunch with the family. Dinner is kind of grab as you go. People show up when they show up, they eat when they eat. Usually dinner is prepared at some point, but it's not a common meal that people come together and sit down for dinner together. Not that common. So you find that lunch has disappeared within the culture. Like nobody goes home for lunch anymore. But dinner still isn't a family meal either. So you may notice in some of your households that people don't even really get together at any particular meal. In my household, dinner was 6 o'clock every night. The whole family would get together and eat dinner together. That was the way my mom ran the house. I found that with my host family here, it was like people just showed up whenever and ate whenever and were served whenever. So it feels different. Most people here, they do cafecito, coffee break at like 4 or 5. And so that holds them over to the later dinner.